Hi, I'm Jeff. This is Tropical Plants at 53 degrees north, and today I want to talk to you about one of my rare successes, Masdevallia Ignea. So I'll turn you around and let's get to it. Okay, so what we have here is Masdevallia Ignea. It's an absolutely gorgeous bloom. I really should have done this video when they were all in flower, but I had time to do it now. I'm expecting a couple more to open this week. This particular plant has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 spikes at the moment. There's 1 or 2 coming at the bottom, so I expect a few more than that to come out. So I've had this one for probably just over 2 years now, and it's flowered reliably for me, actually a couple of times a year. I think it's only supposed to flower once, but I don't know, my conditions might have changed and it did flower a couple of times last year. I'm really pleased with it because I think, having seen so many people saying how difficult it is to grow, it's great to kind of sit back and take credit and say, yeah, look, I've grown this and it's done really well, and it's all down to me. But of course that's not the case, is it? I think more often than not it's the fact that it is growing in conditions that it likes, and I can't really say I've done anything particularly special with it. It's probably a combination of luck in terms of the conditions that I've grown it in, and also a few decisions that I've made, not really based on anything other than convenience, and they just happen to have been the right ones. So I'll go through some of the things that I know that the books tell you about it, and some of the things that I've done with it which I think have probably helped it to grow so well and to enjoy the conditions here. It really is a gorgeous Masdevallia. The fog has just come on, so we'll just give that a second. I'll probably edit a little bit out and then I'll carry on, so just bear with me. If you're new to my channel, click the subscribe button, ding the notification bell, and you won't miss any updates. Okay, Masdevallia Ignea. So it was first described in 1871 by a guy called Gustav Reichenbach, and he brought it back from Colombia. It grows above elevations of 3,000 meters, and it is actually a terrestrial orchid, which that was news to me. It grows in rich humus soil, so that probably gives you an indication to the kind of media to grow it in, and that's something that just happened to be quite coincidental for me, which I'll talk about in a little while. So Ignea is Latin and it means fire red, and it certainly is fire red. I don't know if you can see that. I'll try and bring it in and zoom in on it. Something I was curious about when I was looking at the various names of the parts of orchids, the Masdevallia in particular was pretty tricky to figure it out, and I had to do quite a bit of research to try and find it out. But what you're actually looking at there are the dorsal sepal on the top, and then the 2 lateral sepals along the side there. They're not the petals. Pretty obvious really when you see how they open. You can see quite clearly the outer sepals there are going to become what looks like the flower. The 3 petals that all orchids have, if you do manage to get a day when you're feeling particularly good with your eyesight, and you can perhaps a magnifying glass would be much more useful to do this with. If you get right into the middle, I'll try and show this, I probably won't be able to, you might have to do this yourself, but I'm going to move it right up, and I'm going to try and do this with software afterwards. If you get right into the middle, you can actually see the 3 petals right in the centre are the tiny little things, and the column as well in the middle. So it's certainly not something that anyone would look at and at a glance and say, oh yeah, that's an orchid. But it does still follow the same pattern of what an orchid flower has, what an orchid bloom has. So let's go through the various growing conditions. So we'll start off with light, because obviously light is always important. It's the usual thing. It doesn't like bright sunlight through glass, as do pretty much no plant likes that, but it will take some shade. It's one of these you've got to experiment with, really. I think my conditions here in the UK, you know, we very rarely get real bright sunshine, certainly not for days and days on end or weeks on end. Where my particular microclimate is here, I've got trees which offer some shade, I've got buildings, garage, outside garage, and that does shade it for quite a lot. So no matter where I leave it in the greenhouse, it's going to get that shade. If it's real deep shade, what you find is that the leaves go very, very dark, and if they go too dark, that's like an indication that it's too shady, and that might stop it blooming. So you've got to experiment with it, really, and try and find a place for it where it's getting just the right amount of light but not that real direct sunlight. Temperature, it will go down to 5 degrees. It's known as a cold grower, even though it doesn't particularly like 5 degrees. It tends to like round about 10 minimum, maximum of about 25. I believe at 30 plus then it'll start to drop its leaves. It doesn't like that at all. What else? Media. This was a happy coincidence for me. I actually grow it in something called sphagnum peat moss, which is broken down sphagnum moss. It's not your normal sphagnum moss that we think of for orchids that actually looks like moss. This is decomposed sphagnum moss, so it does actually look just like garden peat, like general purpose garden peat, and I put some perlite in there as well. Doesn't seem to mind, it seems quite happy. I've seen people growing them in sphagnum, a mixture of sphagnum, perlite and bark. So it wants quite like a... There goes the fogger again. Bear with me, I'll edit this bit out. Should just turn it on. Okay, we're back again. I've got a very wet leg. Yeah, so where were we? The media, yeah, it doesn't like it as airy as most orchids, but it doesn't want to be so well drained that it's not going to keep moist, because that's another one of the major growing conditions that it likes. It likes to be kept moist. Now you can see I've got it in this terracotta pot, this clay pot, and I'm pretty loose with the way I water it. You know, I will let it dry out between waterings. I'm not absolutely bob on, you know, doing it every so many days. If I'll just have a look at the top, if it looks like it's drying out a little bit, I'll just give it a little bit more water, and that's fine. Obviously it doesn't want to be absolutely soggy, you know, it isn't a bog plant. It doesn't want its feet in water constantly, and I've heard of them rotting off. So you can let it dry out a little bit between waterings, but I've not found that to be a problem. Humidity, likes lots of humidity, at least 75%. Again, I'm quite lucky for growing Masdevallias here in the UK, in that, you know, it's pretty much humid all the time here. My greenhouse keeps roughly at about 70% humidity, but you know, here's a confession. Come round to summertime and the doors are open, the vents are open, the louvre windows are open. If it's not humid outside, it's not going to be humid in here. So I just turn the fogger off, because it's pointless having it on if it's all going straight out the window. There's absolutely nothing I can do about that. The greenhouse will get so hot in the sun that it needs to be ventilated. So I take the decision to switch my fogger on during the night time, which actually the humidity tends to go up anyway when it goes cooler. So, you know, at least I know for probably 12 hours of the day it's going to get the humidity it needs. The other 12 hours, that's just up to the conditions. But like I say, in the UK we do very rarely get, you know, long periods of dry low humidity weather. So again, that's another happy accident, and that's another reason why it likes it. I think the ones that the videos that I've seen where people are saying that it doesn't grow well for them, it tends to be when they have a grow room in a house and they've got very, very dry conditions and very, very warm conditions, and that's not something that it likes. I know for sure that it's going to at least go down to 10 degrees here in the greenhouse for, you know, for several months. If it doesn't get those cooler temperatures, if it doesn't get that differential for a certain time of the year, then again, it's not going to bloom. Fertiliser, well, believe it or not, I have never ever fertilised this plant. I've never given it any kind of feed whatsoever. So Masdevallias are not big feeders, as are, you know, most orchids are not big feeders. And it's, you know, again, reading the books, the warnings are there clear for you that if you overfeed a Masdevallia, then it will die, and it's easier to overfeed it than to underfeed it. So I took the decision to not feed it whatsoever. All I ever do with it, and you can see it was only a very small plant when I got it, it's certainly not a small plant now. All I ever do with it is I use rainwater from like a water container, a water butt. And the rainwater that comes into the water butt comes off the roof of the garage. The roof of the garage is underneath trees, so there will be nutrients in there. It's not that it's not, you know, pure rainwater that it's getting. It will be getting a little bit from there. It depends when I get the water out of the water butt. If it's rained an awful lot, then the parts per million of nutrients in there will be very, very low. I've seen it as low as about 8 parts per million. If the water has been sitting in the water butt for a long time, it can go up to 30, 40 parts per million. That's it. I never give it anything else. The books do say though that if you're going to give it an orchid feed, only do it every 4 or 5 waterings and keep it at quarter strength of the recommendation, which is hardly anything, is it? And as you can see, it doesn't seem to mind. So that's how I grow it. I'm sure other people grow it in different ways depending on their conditions. It really is a gorgeous plant, and I should take note of the fact that it's growing well for me and get some more Masdevallias, shouldn't I? So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, it all helps. Tell me in the comments about your growing conditions and your experiences with Masdevallia Ignea. I'd love to hear from you, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.